Hello, 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 and welcome back to my channel. Or if it's your first time here, welcome. Today, we're gonna talk about gaslighting. So this term I see gets thrown around often, and I've actually seen some definitions of gaslighting on social media that I didn't quite agree with, so there might be some confusion on what it actually means. So I thought I would jump on here and talk about gaslighting. If you are a victim of narcissistic abuse, I'm sure you're very familiar with what gaslighting is, or you might have even come across it at work or at a family reunion or at school or playing outside with your neighbors. Not playing, but you get the picture. Gaslighting can happen at any time to anyone, but some of us are more familiar with it than others, unfortunately, because it's a tactic that's been employed on us more than we'd like to think about. Sorry, my dog is kind of coughing in the background. He hasn't been feeling good for the past few months. Yes, he's been to the vet like 5 times. I take care of my dogs. And yeah, can't quite figure out. He's old. Can't quite figure out why he goes through these spells. But yeah, that's another subject. Anyway, let's talk about gaslighting. So where does the term come from? I'm sure most of you know, but Gaslight was a psychological thriller that was released in 1944. And the film was based on a play called Gaslight by Patrick Hamilton. Yes, I do have notes, just to make sure I remember to mention everything I want to mention. So in this play/film, the plot revolves around a young woman who inherits a house in London from her aunt who was murdered years earlier. She was a famous opera singer, if I remember correctly. As this young woman settles into her new home with her new husband, strange occurrences start to happen. So she starts to notice that small objects are missing or moved, and there's noises coming from the sealed attic. And of course, her husband's there the whole time, quickly dismissing all of these occurrences, and starts to convince her that she's imagining things. And part of this even, remember the time frame, part of this even comes from manipulation of the lights, the dimming of the lights, and things like that. That's where gaslight comes from. But he quickly convinced her she's imagining things. So as the story unfolds, it becomes clear that her husband's manipulating her as a part of a sinister plot to drive her insane and gain control of her inheritance. So nice of him. So along the way, he's employing tactics of psychological manipulation, deception, and gaslighting, hence the title, to make her doubt her perceptions and her own sanity. Following along? Yeah. So throughout the film, the wife becomes increasingly isolated and vulnerable to her new husband's manipulations, but eventually uncovers the truth about his true intentions with the help of a Scotland Yard detective, of course. So, the term gaslighting has since entered pop culture to describe this psychological manipulation tactics that were depicted in the film. That's where this weird term gaslighting comes from. Okay, so in summary, it's a combination of manipulation tactics designed to make a victim doubt their own reality. That is the bottom line. It makes you second guess yourself. It makes you think, did that really happen? Did I remember that correctly? Maybe I don't remember that correctly. Maybe I got it wrong. And then you start spiraling. Okay. So when we talk about gaslighting, some common tactics include, and I just wanted to touch on these few tactics, just so in case you notice yourself getting kind sucked into this gaslighting spiral. You'll have this in the back of your head. But number one is isolation. That is, I mean, that's common for any abuse victims to go through isolation. That's one of the first things that happens. You get isolated from your family, from your friends, and then you don't have anyone to go to kind of question or bounce things off of and be like, hey, then, you know, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? You don't have anyone to support you. You don't have anyone to give you good guidance. And you're just alone, you're isolated, and that's just the worst place to be. Anyone that's been isolated knows it's a terrible place to be. So that'd be one tactic that's used in gaslighting. Another is denial and dismissal, making the victim feel unworthy or invalid. So there's just a lot of dismissing of what you're feeling to make you feel like your feelings are invalid. Just denial, outright denial, and it just wears you down till you do start feeling unworthy, or you just completely feel invalidated, right? Next one, lies and distortions. So, I mean, self-explanatory, but it's a blurring of the lines between what's real and what's not. So you're like, you know, like I said, do I remember that correctly? Was that real? Did I perceive that correctly? Maybe I'm wrong. You just a lot of self-doubting going on because you're being manipulated because of the lies and distortions, omissions, changing of details, just blurring those lines. Next thing, projection of the perpetrator's negative traits or intentions onto the victim. I know many of us have been on the other end of projection. So you try to bring something up. Next thing you know, it's getting projected back to you. It's deflection, projection. Now you're completely caught off guard and you're defending yourself when, and it totally takes all the attention off of what you were trying to discuss or get answers to or whatever. And it's just such a tangled web that it's like a prison that you get trapped into. This whole gaslighting, I don't know. I can't even explain it. I guess I'm probably not doing a good job of explaining it because I've been there. Actually, I've been there multiple times, not only with being married to a narcissist, but just this can happen anywhere. It can happen with colleagues. It can happen with family members. It can happen, with anyone. So in a professional setting, it can happen at school, like it can happen anywhere. So yeah, gaslighting is no fun. But it's important to know that that's what's happening to you when it's happening. So isolation and gaslighting by proxy is the last thing I want to talk about. And that's when third parties are employed to reinforce the gaslighting narrative onto the victim. So now the abuser or the perpetrator is bringing in third parties. Those third parties might be willingly or unwillingly doing this. Might be your family members, might be your friends, might be his friends, might be your coworkers, and might be someone that you consider close to you. And they might not even realize they're gaslighting you by proxy. Some of it's intentional, some of it's not. It might be the flying monkeys gaslighting you by proxy. But that just adds to what you're already experiencing. 9 times out of 10, you've already been isolated. So it's not going to be someone super close to you gaslighting you, but it could be a family member or something like that's hearing a certain narrative from the perpetrator, and they're just like, oh yeah, and they're reinforcing it onto you, so to where you really, really start to believe this narrative. Like in this case, like in the play, things are being moved in the house, the lights are going up and down, and things are happening to where she could possibly really believe, wow, maybe I am going crazy. Maybe I am going insane. No one else sees this. This is only happening to me, until someone comes along and kind of helps pull you out of that. Anyway, I just wanted to hop on here real quick, 10 minutes. We're at 10 minutes, and just talk about gaslighting. Not spend a whole half hour talking about it or anything like that. Just a quick definition, where the term came from. And if you've been gaslighted, or if you think you've been gaslighted, share your experience in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks, and have a great weekend. Bye.